we have a very wonderful performance and presenter and interaction session with you today with NAFA's very own Dr. Zachariah Goto-Chai. He will introduce his saxophone ensemble and Mrinagam performing team.
Confluence was commissioned by the Selaya Saxophone Ensemble and NAFA Saxophone Ensemble for the 2019 World Saxophone Congress in Croatia. The reason why I chose this title, Confluence, is basically, it's like the original word confluence means the river, two streams of water coming together. And when they are mingled together, it's really hard to separate them, right? So we practice in Singapore, and they practice in Thailand. And then we'll rehearse in Croatia. He has to perform barefooted. Yeah. It's a respect to the instrument and the teaching, right, for a Mrinagam player. So these are some of the things that we need to bear in mind, not just playing the music. We need to know the cultural aspect of the different practices. It's very complex because we are talking about different cultures. Indian cultures, Chinese culture, Malay and Western culture. These are all confluence, mixed together in our daily practice as a musician of this era. So I think it's appropriate for us to present this piece to you at this conference. Thank you.
Okay, so now, ladies and gentlemen, there's really something very exciting we find it very exciting. We hope that you'll find it exciting as well. Coming up next is something we've all been waiting for. We've been developing this project together in partnership with Silvercorn University, Ajahn Gomesh, and also his team CyberX, as well as UOB World and Serial_Co, who are actually behind us. And this will be followed by two presentations by Debbie Ding, Unforgettable Machines, Counter Archives and Algorithmic Speculations, the Library of Pulau Saigon. A very interesting piece, probably about like 10 years ago, I can't remember, but she will tell you more about that, but it's brilliant interpretations and brilliant use of technology. And then that will be followed by Boedi Widjaja, who is talking about immortal words. A word is BIOS, and BIOS basically stands for Basic Input Output System. You'll be excited to learn a little bit more about the kind of research he's doing and how that is interpreted, the library, if you like, of our bodies and our genetic coding, and how that conditions, if you like, our cultural interactions or the way we think and express ourselves.
I want to say that the project about the archiving, that's one thing, and also the music that we just heard just a bit earlier. The archive, for me at least, the concept of archiving is about how we perceive what is important, currently thinking that is important about something that has already happened. So as you can see, the medium changed from the ancient stone to line art to manga to 3D to all the way to the Gen Z style characters. And in the year 2025, special milestone for me, because it is not just my dream anymore. It becomes a shared dream with young generation, with other people from other countries as well. And then the right side is what it projected out. But we didn't use it right away. We have to modify it, to revise it. So in a way, you can have AI to draft it, but at the end, human to craft it. So this is the result of the stone version, which you'll be seeing when you are playing in the game. And this is the fully revival form. Creatures from humans' imagination or from the lores. And then we decide that why not create the next one, the one that will be representing the creativity of humanity. So we try to combine the three of them, which I will be revealing at the end of this presentation. So this is how the gameplay works. The thing called the learning through play, like I have said before. So within it, you can read through, and then learn more about the traditional heritage, because I think it is fun and also interesting to reinterpret it as the metaverse with the new style of figurine, but yet we still need to stay rooted.
Kind of like collecting all, what you see here on the left is 100 of my dreams mapped out in a kind of visual form. So it kind of like, of course you could say, who cares about your dreams, but the dreams for me, they have a big effect on my day, when I wake up from a dream, and I always wanted to capture them. I always felt that even these immaterial or not very, very hard to talk about these spaces, these also seem to have a really big impact on how I viewed the world. So, kind of asserting that there are stories that are worth telling, even if they are very fleeting, So there was a book made by the archaeologists back then over a 2-week period to dig up the items from Pulau Saigon. That was also triggered by a search by an amateur archaeologist. So just a person who was interested in archaeology, he also kind of raised the flag to the university. Is there anything of interest there in this site in the Singapore River, which is the central part of Singapore, where all the sort of historical or economic center of Singapore is supposed to originate from. So I thought the Singapore River was an interesting thing to investigate. So they mentioned that the site was kind of very topsy-turvy, in that the old coins were at the bottom and all the things that were new were on the top. So it was completely compromised already, and all, this kind of material in the Singapore River is also often dredged up and put elsewhere. So it's really a site that, it's hard to interpret as well. What is Pulau Saigon? And will people even care if, like, say, parts of the country have disappeared? So this is a list of the objects. I think what fascinated me about the objects themselves is that they also sounded very everyday, like, spoon, a belt buckle, So the objects themselves also were like, it's a post-18th century archaeological assemblage. So it was kind of like very recent sounding also, like, is it really that old? Other countries have really old stuff, and then we have this not that old thing, So what could I make from it also? I think I was drawn to the very minor sounding objects. So these are some of the objects. You can see they're very ordinary and very vernacular, everyday things. So, I think of my process as also plucking a thing from a different timeline. Like it could be from the past or the future, but it's really about seeing all the different possibilities for understanding it.
In 2024, I was commissioned to develop Immortal Words, a public art project that encodes 12 of the world's oldest known words into synthetic DNA. Companies like Microsoft and Western Digital are already investing in DNA as the storage system of the future. Every movie ever made can be stored in DNA the size of a sugar cube. Unlike current server farms, DNA data storage requires very little energy to maintain. And how long can DNA storage last? The oldest DNA sediments discovered in Greenland date back 2 million years. But my impulse to write in DNA isn't archival. I use DNA as a material for embodiment, a biological code that can be inherited, mutated, forgotten, and remembered. These nucleotides, specific and discrete, when put in a sequence, form codes. In our cells, these DNA codes are read and translated into amino acids, and from there into proteins that carry out life's functions. I wanted the DNA words to be encountered in public spaces in an accessible and playful format, gachapon machines. Like language, meaning is passed not through containment, but through interaction, through play, spontaneity, and touch. Because stories, history, and language have always survived, not through containment, but through movement, through travel, dispersal, and migration. Thank you.
So the question for today's dialogue is, how can recorded art forms and performance from print to digital technologies inspire critical discourse? So it's quite an obvious question, but what we want, of course, is a very personal perspective from the different artists. Icons of power and diversity, and how one could affect, and history even, there's a weight of history with us, how one could impact or affect agency, through some kind of leverage, whatever it is you might suggest.
Yeah, I guess from my perspective as an artist, making games, but the games I want to make are, like you say, about the agency of the player, of people, on maybe making games that are also about the rules of games, where people don't always have, people are asking also, the whole, in your everyday life, you're told you have to do things a certain way, but and then when you're playing a game, a lot of times the game designer is telling you you have to do it a certain way. But what if you choose not to? I guess the games I personally like, and I like to play, and also the artworks that I like also are also things sometimes that play with that. That maybe even the tempo of playing, it doesn't have to be, to also go back to the rhythms and the sounds of a city, that it's also about the slowness or having a walk, and that also has its own rhythm, being attentive to these sounds and the atmosphere and all these other things that make up the world, So it's also about having that space, to contemplate also how we want to behave, how we want to react to it, which, in a world of, a lot of, I guess games is in everything, in youth culture, everyone's playing different kinds of games that are telling people with a certain rule, you have to play and win a certain way, you have to win it. But what if you didn't have to also win, it was also about just you exploring, you understanding, making your own interpretation.
Or ground-up archiving as well, because there's so much ground-up activities, culture production, art production, sound as well, everyday sounds that really needs to be archived from the ground up, and it should also become something that we do as a community as well. So I guess it's not really a question, but it's a provocation in how we should approach a conversation about archive and not bring in AI every time, because that's the end point. You kind of throw in information there and it becomes a new form of archive as well. Like what Sherman mentioned. But I think specific to our region, it's really important for contemporary artists, for art historians, for curators as well, to kind of see how the archive can reach out to a newer audience.
But I want to just end with this line. In a way, it's good that we don't know a lot of things. In a meeting with the universities earlier, we talked about going to the mountains, to go and discover things that we don't know anything about. And in a way, it's good that we don't know a lot of things, because it gives us a long runway, to try and find our way and discover these new things. But also, I want to say, in terms of documentation or archives or a dearth of it, where it doesn't exist, then the statement or the observation would be, if it really matters, like Malati, for instance, if it really matters, you will find it.